This episode is for every leader who's ever ended the day wondering why they're so tired, when all they did was make decisions they've made 100 times before. Today we're talking about identity fatigue, what it is, how it masquerades as decision fatigue, and why it quietly drains even the most capable, accomplished leaders. If you've ever felt like leadership is heavier than it should be, this episode will help you understand why and what to do about it. Let's get started, shall we? You're the one they turn to, the calm one, the capable one, the one with the answers. And yet, beneath it all, you know there's more available for you. More energy, more clarity, more unshakable presence. Welcome to Project Joyful, the podcast for health-centered leaders. I'm Tracy Tutty. Here, we speak to the part of you that knows leadership isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more fully who you are. So let's begin, shall we? Hey, so welcome back to Project Joyful, the podcast for health-centered leaders. This is where we get to explore how to lead from your center and live your most aligned, joyful life. I'm your host, Tracy Tutty, and today we're diving into a leadership blind spot that masquerades as something more familiar. So this is the second episode in our series on the hidden costs of high performance, where we're exploring the subtle ways leadership drains your energy and what you can do about it. So let's talk about identity fatigue. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had days where I've had to make a ton of decisions, from answering questions from my team to figuring out the best way to present information. But by the end of the day, I'm worn out, not from the doing, but from the constant deciding. Now, you might have heard of decision fatigue before. It's that mental overload from making too many choices throughout the day. It's real, it's researched, and it's why you feel shattered after back-to-back meetings, or why choosing what to cook for dinner can feel impossible after a long day. Research by Roy Baumeister and others confirms that our decision-making capacity diminishes throughout the day. And it's something high performers try to manage. Think about Steve Jobs, for example. He wore that same black turtleneck and jeans every day. Not because he lacked style, but because he understood the cognitive cost of unnecessary decisions. And that was one less choice in his day, freeing up brain power for the things that really mattered, in his opinion. But here's the twist. What if your exhaustion isn't just from too many decisions? What if it's from a deeper, less viable form of fatigue? This brings us to identity fatigue. So what is identity fatigue? Well, it's the weariness that comes from constantly performing a version of yourself that doesn't actually feel safe to be real. It's what happens when your subconscious mind isn't fully on board with the seat that you're sitting in. There's an inside track going on that plays on repeat, and it sounds a bit like this. Have I got this? Do I really know what I'm doing? What if it goes wrong? It's subtle, but it creates a constant background tension that eats away at your energy. Think of it like this. You're holding space for your team, your family, maybe your clients, but underneath, there's a loop running in your mind asking yourself, am I doing this right? Will they still respect me if I get this wrong? This kind of chronic low-grade misalignment creates an emotional and cognitive load that goes well beyond deciding what's for dinner. It's why you feel exhausted even after what looks like a reasonable day on paper. So how might this be showing up in your life? Well, here's 3 signs that you're not dealing with decision fatigue. First up, you say you trust your team, but you're still rereading and tweaking their work at 10 p.m. You want to delegate, but you worry they'll discover something off in your own analysis of those numbers. You give your team these amazing pep talks, but your own inner critic is running a parallel monologue, questioning, doubting, dissecting, even as you uplift others. Now, these are all symptoms of identity fatigue. Your subconscious is working overtime to keep you safe, but that safety is costing you energy, presence, and connection. So, if you were walking into your next team meeting and you knew without a doubt that you didn't have to prove anything, how would your presence shift? Let's just sit with that for a moment. Here's the real kicker. Imposter syndrome isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper. And when your subconscious doesn't feel safe in your success, you're going to keep trying to earn what you've already achieved. This isn't a mindset issue. It's a nervous system issue. And no amount of time management or morning routine is going to fix it until your identity aligns with your influence. Let me give you an example. I worked with a client recently. She was a senior finance leader. She always seemed calm and in control. Her team loved her. But every big decision took days, sometimes weeks. She'd double check, she'd reanalyze, she'd hesitate to delegate. So we dug into this. It wasn't about skill, it was about safety. Her subconscious was still asking if she was allowed to fully own her seat at the table. Once we recalibrated that pattern, decisions became faster, lighter. Her team noticed the shift immediately. When we work through this with neuro-identity coaching, we don't just manage stress. Stress is the symptom. We recalibrate the internal identity that's driving your leadership, and that's where the magic happens. That's when leadership feels light again. Here's what the research shows. Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory teaches us that our nervous system's constantly scanning for safety. If your subconscious doesn't feel safe, your executive function, that's your ability to focus, to prioritize, to communicate clearly, well, it starts to fray at the edges. You find yourself second-guessing simple choices, missing the nuance in conversations when you already know you're a great communicator, or rereading that same email 5 times before hitting send. Imagine what that's doing to your productivity. And if that's your baseline, what else might be getting lost? Your clarity, your confidence, your capacity to think creatively or connect deeply. Harvard Business Review found that emotional labor, which is the effort that it takes to manage and regulate your emotions, or the emotions of others, especially if you're a team leader or a parent, and especially in professional settings. Now, in leadership, that means you're staying composed and supported during high-stakes moments. You're shelving your own stress to soothe your team. You're masking frustration to keep morale high, even when you're running on empty. And this self-monitoring is significantly higher in women leaders. That's identity fatigue in action. You're not tired because you can't decide. You're tired because you're trying to be seen as enough. So what if your leadership didn't rely on performance? What if it came from your center, anchored, aligned, fully embodied, from a nervous system that knows you belong exactly where you are? So throughout this episode, we've explored the nuance between decision fatigue and identity fatigue. You've recognized that what wears you down might not actually be the volume of decisions, but the quiet, constant questioning that underpins them. You've seen how even subtle self-doubt shows up in your leadership, how your inner critic shadows your pep talks, and your need for precision can mask a need for safety. And perhaps, more importantly, you've seen that this isn't a personal failing. It's simply a nervous system response, and it can shift in an instant. That's the heart of what we do inside my one-on-one neuro-identity coaching program, Revitalize. We work below the surface, gently, precisely, so your leadership flows from presence, not performance. We align your identity with your influence. Now, if this resonated and you're ready to lead from a place that feels clean, calm and powerful, I invite you to apply for one-on-one coaching with me. DM me the word centered or head over to projectjoyful.com to begin that conversation. Until next time, stay joyful, stay steady, and lead from your truth. I'm sending you lots of love. Bye for now.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast. Can I ask you a favour? If our conversation spoke to you today, could you please take a moment to leave a 5-star review? Your review will help people discover this podcast, and together we can create a world where there's even more love and more laughter. And if you want to hear more from the Project Joyful podcast, just click the subscribe button. Bye for now.